It's Halloween! It is a Halloween season, and I hope you guys are in a wonderful Halloween mood here for October with skeletons and your jars of grave dirt and whatever else is going on in your humble abode. Today we are going to look at and we're going to make what's called the Tesla Spirit Radio. The Tesla Spirit Radio. Yes, this is a contraption that Nikola Tesla invented. He wired it together and he was hearing voices. It terrified. It just freaked the guy completely out. And once you hear the sounds that's coming from that, I think you're going to be a little bit wigged out too. It's kind of on the creepy side. So we're going to build one. Now Tesla built this thing and he heard voices. He heard strange sounds from the far beyond and he just wigged out. He wigged totally out. So of course we're going to make it today. Now the links to how this is made is below. There's a whole kit you can buy. Here's a little picture of the kit. It just comes in a little bitty tiny. It's very easy to put together. Also comes with this jack plug. This plug is an audio plug. It can go into your computer, and you can record the audio from it. You'll also need to get a couple bundles of wire, 20 gauge solid core, not the braided. You'll need 20 gauge solid core, and you'll need 14 gauge solid core to put all this together. There's a couple other things you need. One is a mason jar. Now, in some of the places online, you'll see that they use a much smaller mason jar. I found that you need the taller quart jar because it gives you a little bit more stability. So I got a bigger jar, and if you still have, problems with getting the center of gravity right, just put some glass beads or glass marbles or something at the bottom, and that should give you enough stability for the jar. The other thing you'll need to do is take the lid of the mason jar, and you'll need to make a copy of it in plexiglass. Now it needs to be really round because this plexiglass goes on top of the jar and it takes the load of the antennas that go on top, so it has to be strong. Now you don't need to go down to Home Depot and get a big sheet of plexiglass and do all this stuff. What I did, I went to Home Depot and I got one of these little picture frames, right? Just Home Depot got the thickest I could find and the least flexible I could find. And this, I can make two. I can make one on this side and one on this side. I can have a one and then a backup if I screw one up. So those are the things you'll need. You'll definitely need. So you'll need the kit, which is linked below. You'll need 14 gauge wire, and you'll need 20 gauge wire. These need to be solid core, not braided or anything monkey business like that. Solid core wire. A mason jar, and you will need the picture frame. So let's get to work. Oh my God, what are we gonna hear? So step one in this whole thing is we've got to make the plexiglass lid. Because anything you do next, you're going to have to attach to the plexiglass surface. So what we're going to do, we'll take the lid off the mason jar. We're going to take this lid, and we need to make this as round as possible because we want to make sure it's the same size as the lid. Round as possible, so as much force and stability will be transferred to the glass. So we just don't want to half-ass this. We want to make sure it's as round as we can get. And so we'll just take our piece of plexiglass, our little frame holder here, our picture holder that we got at Office Depot. It looks like maybe we'll get 4 out of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to just mark it for 2. And if we screw up, we'll try again. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this, move it closer to the edge, And we can put another one down here if need be. And we can also do it to the other side if we really hose it. And there we go. Now my preferred way to cut this out is this beast. I know this is overkill. I get that. But I just love this thing. It's incredibly loud. It is just... It's obnoxious. It's mostly dangerous. And but in all ways, wear safety glasses. So I'm going to take this out back, and I'm going to cut this out, and I'll come back. You don't want to see this. It's just going to be noisy, and you know, it's just going to be terrible. And it's just really going to be, but I'm really going to love it. So now, Bob's your uncle. We've got a disc. Now, one thing I did change is I used 2-ply. I used both halves to go in there. I didn't like the flimsiness, and I just want to make sure I had enough width to stabilize the whole contraption, because it is kind of unstable. So I'm going to take a file and trim up some of these edges, but this is essentially what you have. And then it just fits right in the lid. Lid goes on the jar. Boom! This is non-conductive. This is conductive. That's the reason we had to change out. We use plexiglass. And always wear your safety glasses. Wear your safety glasses. There's no way around it. You're going to wear your safety glasses. I don't want to hear excuses. You're going to wear your safety glasses. Safety glasses. Told you. Safety glasses. You, and you hiding in the background, you're going to use your safety glasses. So where to begin? I'm going to open my laptop. You won't always see it off screen. I'm going to be using the Instructable's guide to how to make this thing. All the parts come from that list and so forth. So I'm going to be following that, and the link is in the video description. First thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to drill the holes in this top. Now, where to drill them? Instructable has this little image here, and the holes for this comes from the parts listed in the graphics. So we just got to figure out the width, figure out the width of what these holes are, mark the holes, and put it together. So this one and this one are the antenna. This one is that there. Okay, so this, look at the Instructables, there needs to be, could be 2 more holes. One over here, auxiliary signal input jack. So you could put an, this would be the aux jack for here. And then over here, if you want audio out, there'd be one over here. So I guess this is for this one is for the auxiliary input. This is for the auxiliary output. So these will go here. These will go here. And this will go here. I think that is positioning. Now on the other side, these 4 devices get connected together. So let's put one of these in the middle. And one about halfway between the edge and the center. Instructables doesn't give any distance, any geometry for this, so middle, I'm halfway between the middle and the edge of the jar lid just for structural stability. The old Ryobi! This thing has seen better days. And remember, I've got 2 in here. We're going to slowly drill in. Okay, good hole. Now we're going to do the other one. We really want to do this slow so we don't crack the plexiglass. You got a small crack on the second layer, but we don't want that. So just go real slow. The bit will chew up the plexiglass, so don't fret. Just slow speed, slow pressure down. And when you may want to use one hand to hold the jar. Lesson learned. Okay, I'm doing this in the chicken kitchen. You probably don't want to do this in your kitchen. So we've got this hole drilled and this hole drilled. Next we're going to temp this, and I think it is the same size or near so. So these look to be equally placed. We're going to put this over here on this side, kind of keep the distances equal. Also, we have to keep in mind that we've got to have, it can't go too far over, because then we'll be bouncing up against the lid or against the edge of the glass jar, and we certainly don't want that. So we want to place it right about there. So we, and it'll be that way the leads will have clear orientation downward. And we don't want it to get in the way of this here, of the wires coming through this terminal. So we're going to put it right about here. This will be basically in equidistance. We'll also have clear access to the leads on the underside of the jar to do all the soldering. We don't want to do it like this, because then the leads will be interfering with the banana plug jacks going in. So we'll put it like 90 degrees to this line of holes here. So we'll put it about equidistant again, right about there. We'll get it all lined up right about there. Again, wear your safety glasses. Wear your safety glasses. Wear them. And again, you don't want to go real fast. If you got a variable speed drill, just keep it on low. You don't have to put a lot of pressure down. The drill bit will do the work. And when it starts spinning around, just hold one hand on the drill, the other hand on the jar. And you don't want to crack the plastic at the second layer. Just go real slow. The drill, the weight of the drill will do all the work. It's not a race. There we go. Now there's these 2 side holes to this we're going to have to drill, and that's going to take some precision. Because those are those 2 holes right there that hold the whole thing, keeps it from spinning around. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to actually put this in the lid, or put the lid on this, and then just sight the holes best we can, and then drill through those holes. Yeah, these are 1/16 holes. So now we should mark this. You can see how this just fits perfectly. Okay, so here we go. We're going to drill these 2 teeny tiny holes. Remember, these holes are going to be oriented so the leads will face away from the 2 banana plug jacks. And just don't force it. Let the drill do the work. There we go. Let the drill do the work. The weight of the drill is enough to penetrate the plexiglass. You can always smooth them out. Okay. There we go. And that'll work. So now we've also got this one and this one drilled. So I'm not sure we'll do audio in. For our purposes, we want audio out. So we have to drill this one here. So we're going to put it 90 degrees off axis. We're going to put it right here. Okay, so we've done all the measuring. We got all the holes drilled. Now we can start assembling stuff. We're at step 3, mounting the components on the cover. Now this next step, you're going to need some pliers. I'm just going to use my Leatherman. Hopefully that'll be sufficient. You're going to need some really small scale screwdrivers. So let's get to it. And you don't have to put a big lot of oomph on these screws. They're not going anywhere, so don't panic. And ta-da! So let's look at the rest of this. So let's put the lugs in, just like that. Remember the lug, this lug goes underneath. And it needs to go, and for design purposes, we're going to send it straight the other direction as all these other leads. We're going to do our best to keep it going that way as we tighten this up. And this does not have to be hugely tight. You don't want it twisting, but you also don't want to crack the plastic. And we're going to gently pry that lug up so we have good access to it. We don't want the lugs against the plexiglass. We want to have freedom to solder them and not melt anything. Very important. So we'll do this to the plus side. And the next thing is going to be our audio out. But I'm going to face the lug this way. I don't know if you can see, I'm going to face the lug this way. If I put it here, it's going to run interference probably to this. We'll run it 90 degrees. To get the knob on, there's a little screw here. You back that almost all the way out. So where the inside of the channel, inside of the hole, the knob is clear. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the knob extender on. It just kind of goes like this, right on top. If you can see, the rheostat mount for the knob is slotted on each side. So we just kind of align it with that slot and put that on top. And of course it rolled off. And so, but the goal is to get this screw, long screw that comes with the kit, into the knob and secure it to the rheostat. Doesn't take a lot of oomph. So when you get this mounted, this knob shaft mounted, it should turn freely. The base of the shaft should clear the plastic. If it's not, go back and drill it out to where you have plenty of gaps so it can freely rotate. It's important that it freely rotates. Now the knob goes on. You put the knob on. And you can see there's a little tiny screw there. That tightens the knob to the shaft. If you can't get the knob on, that means this screw needs to be backed out so that it clears the inner shaft. This takes a small, this specific one takes a small standard screwdriver. Now you can rotate the knob. All that crap's done. So what we're going to do, I'm going to save the soldering to last. The next thing we're going to do is work on the antennas. The antennas go into the banana plugs. You can see these here. It's the same kind of side screw thing. You put the antenna wire into here, tighten it down, and that gives you a snug connection. So for the antenna, we got 14 gauge wire. You're going to need about, I think Instructable tells me 6 feet of wire. So we'll need 2 links. So 6 feet of wire per antenna. So that's 12 feet in all. And I just got this wire at Home Depot. It's very important you get the solid wire, not the braided or some other commie thing. You want you want the solid core wire because these have to be solid core antennas. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to take the installation off. I'm going to go strip all this off and then we'll catch back up. So our next thing is we've got the wire stripped into two 6-piece 6-foot sections. So now we just got to wire this into the antenna disc arrays and we'll be good to go. At the very beginning you want a 6-inch lead that'll be vertical of the spiral. So we'll just right here. And so the pancake will go around like this. So it's going to go like this. And then the wire is going to spiral around and round and round until we're left with about 6 inches on the far end. And this end here will be plugging directly into the Tesla Spirit radio. So what we're going to do is, we've got this bent. So now what we're going to do is we're going to spiral it this way. So what I'm doing, I've just got the pliers. I'm starting to roll it around the needle nose pliers. And so now we're just going to work the wire around. This is very stiff wire and it's going to be a pain in the butt. I'm just going to wrap the wire into a circular motion. It's always best to use a couple needle nose to just gingerly wrap it around. And I'll show you what it looks like once it's done. All right, so one down. Is that not the ugliest thing you ever did see? There's more art to this than anything else, but once you get it into this kind of coiled configuration, you can kind of work it with your hands and get it flattened out. It's just good to work it out with your hands and get it as flat as you can. Doesn't have to be perfectly flat, but do your best. Do your best. Now on to number 2. I am glad that's over. Man, that was a chore. I put the banana plugs on. Now let's just test how this is going to look. Put the lid on. There we go. Looking good. Alright, so the next part is the dreaded soldering. So the next step is soldering, which is going to be easy. Believe it or not, it's going to be easy. Essentially, we have a common ground going from each of the antennas to the bottom of the variable capacitor, to the bottom of the resistor, to the bottom of the capacitor, to the bottom of the audio out plug. So it's really kind of an easy solder. Thing we're going to have to pay attention to is the diode. Got to make sure the diode is put in directionally correct. And these things tend to be a little bit sensitive to heat. So I'd recommend a low temperature soldering iron and we should be good to go. So there's a little gaff from the Instructable's website and from the kit you get from Mike's Electronics. There's a tad discrepancy here. The coil, induction coil, which you can see here, if that's visible. There are 3 wires. There's a black one, a white one, and a red one. Now the schematic that only shows 2 wires coming off of the coil. L1 is this in the Instructable's schematic. L1 is this device here. So when you see usually a coil is one end, then there's the copper wrapped around it to the other end. So that's point 1 and point 2. Well, this one has a red one. And if you look it up on Mike's Electronics, this one has a tap. Now what a tap is It is another wire connected to the coil. So you have one end, which is this is one end here. This is the absolute end of the coil. You'll have wrap, 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 wrap. You'll have one that's the tap that gives you a different value. Gives you a different value of the coil. And then there's the other end, which is this red one. This red one is visibly all the way at the other end. All the way at the other end. Now Mike's Instructables claims that the coil that's supposed to come with it is a 680 microhenry ferrite loopstick antenna. 680 microhenry. But that's the one without a tap. If you look up this part, if you find a loopstick that has a tap in it, as a 3-wire arrangement, red, black, and white, then this end is the proper, this end, it is a 680 microfarad, but if you use the tap, it turns into, I think, a 460 or 480 microfarad, which gives you a different coil value. Now, the Instructables document tells you to connect the black wire to the ground, but the Instructables document is also showing you a coil with no tap. So we're going to use the red wire for the ground and this white wire as the other end of the coil. And we're just going to let this dangle. You really don't want to cut these off because that kind of changes the mechanics of the coil. So just let it dangle. Just let it dangle. So that's going to be a different variation from what we're doing here with this Tesla Spirit radio than what is on the Instructable site. So just in case you order one of these from Mike's Electronics, either give them a call to verify. But I just went through their parts list and just looked at all the variations, and this is it still is a ferrite loopstick antenna, 680 microhenries, but it also has a tap for a much lower value. And you can look, if you look at it closely, and the camera won't show it, this end right here, this end of the wire right here, actually goes to the end of the coil, as does this one. This wire here goes to maybe 70%, 80% of the coil. So this end and this end we're going to consider is the end of the coil, and this is a tap that we're just going to ignore, right? So we got this length of wire done for the coil. We're just going to do 10 wraps. So we're going to do 10 wraps. So what we'll do, we'll take the full length of the wire and just do best guess. Set the magnet on top, fold the wire around it thus, good and tight. And we want to make sure we're just going to do 10 wraps. We're going to do 5 this way, take the other end, 5 the other way. And we just want to make sure this is really wound tight. Got to be careful because this magnet in between, it goes in and out, in and out. So you got to be really careful with it. And 5. Okay, that's 5. So we're going to do 5 the other direction and 5. So now that's 10 turns here on the magnet. So you can see that's 10 turns now. So that's good. So that's done. So this is going to go, now it's going to hang right down here in the bottom. So this is going to be just like that. So now we're going to start the soldering process. God help us all. So I'm letting my soldering iron, it's just got a little small weller. You don't want anything really, really hot because you're having to deal with a germanium diode. Those are kind of tender. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to connect the audio jack to the ground. We're going to use this middle terminal here. We're going to use this middle terminal here on the audio as our common ground, tie everything to that. soldering was pretty straightforward with the exception of the tap. So then we just put the lid on, tighten it down, secure it, put the antennas in, put the antennas in, and there we go. One Tesla Spirit radio. So the thing we're going to do next, hook the audio port up to the computer and see what we hear. So now we get to hook this thing into the computer. So the way this thing works is these two copper rods, we've been calling the antenna, they also power the battery. Now, if you recall, if you've ever heard, Tesla was all into figuring out a way to give everybody free energy through his insane ideas and inventions. Well, this was one way. This is at the guts of the Tesla Spirit radio, is really a crystal radio, an old-timey crystal radio that needs no power. It is powered. It needs no battery. It doesn't need a wall jack. It just takes the energy out of the atmosphere, electromagnetic energy out of the atmosphere, converts it into a usable current to power the battery. Now, crystal radios were always very weak. You needed like a little earpiece just to listen to them. You had to be kind of close to the radio source to hear anything. So since we're trying to get things from the great beyond, we're going to have to use a computer because the signal is just too weak to listen to it. So we're going to have to use a computer. So we've got this computer line. It's just the audio cable that came with the kit. Plug it into the audio jack. For the Mac, I am using Audio Hijack, and that'll let you get the most out of the output of your Tesla Spirit radio. Okay? So this is what it sounds like with the audio coming straight from the Tesla Spirit radio through the cable. What the hell was that? It's truly a remarkable little invention. So let me show you how I set up Audio Hijack for this. I had to play around with Audio Hijack quite a bit. It took some doing, but you just remember this is a very quiet invention. It's a very quiet output. So you really have to work on the amplification. You have to work on keeping the static out from the AC hum, from your refrigerator kicking in, and all the other kind of craziness around. So let's look at what we have to do for getting Audio Hijack set up and get you recording. So let's start at the first one, the input device. For my computer, there's no exact audio in. So it's got a USB gizmo that just gives you audio in, audio out through regular jacks. Just put that in a USB port. Ran the line from the Spirit radio into that, and that's how I got my audio in. It's through a USB audio device. The next three blocks are volume. Some people put 3 blocks in there and they put them all in the overdrive at 4x. For me, I found if there's like some sort of extraneous sound, like lightning strikes that really affect this, or some other kind of spooky thing wanting to reach out, the signal may be so strong compared to the background noise, it's what you're really picking up. The peak sound may overdrive the audio system and you'll get all the static, and it's just horrible. Now the next one is denoise. If you are in kind of a quiet area of the world where you're not in a big city with tons of Wi-Fi, tons of refrigerators and motors and airplanes and whatever else is going around, then you may or may not need to denoise. For me, it depends on the time of day. So I turn it on, turn it off, just to keep the sound manageable. And so the next step for me is dehum. I go through regular 60 cycle, and there's some other strains like 134 cycles, something or another that's around here. I think it's probably one of the neighbors got something running, and that just, this guy stuff taken, I filtered that out. Then I just put it through a balancer. I've got the 10-band equalizer I've set for, I kind of amplify the low end as opposed to the high end. I've got 3 pitches. I've got an audio delay. I've got a reverb, a new pitch, bass and treble. And then the last volumes, I got 4 volumes, which are really bumping up. Once I've massaged the signal, get all the crap and the hum and whatever the neighbors got going on, then I really bump it up to audible levels. Then I set a recorder. And then I've got the VU meters, just so I can, for me, just trying to make sure I get something recordable. I love this thing. Oh my God. And if you want to like use it as a method to create music, you can just touch the... Let me give a music creation demo here. It really reacts, because remember, this is adding energy into the system. So it really reacts dramatically if you touch it. That's with the noise on. So if you take the denoise off, so that's it for this episode. If you like this episode, please give it a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing here on the channel, please subscribe. And if you have any questions, please drop those in the comments below. And until next time,
I'll be your haunting spirit. Take care. Goodbye.